The story I'm going to share with you today is from American Tall Tales by Mary Osborne. Afternoon, Mac. Mose Humphreys tipped his stove-top hat, revealing flaming red hair. Puffing a huge cigar, he swaggered toward his special table at the Paradise Soup House on the Bowery. Mose was 8 feet tall, had hands as large as Virginia hams. His arms were so long that he could scratch his kneecaps without bending his back. "Hi, Mose, what'll it be?" shouted Mac, one of the soup house waiters. Mose sat down in the big chair made especially for him and said, "Bring me a plate of pork and beans, Mac." But just then, cries came from outside. "Fire! Fire! Turn out! Turn out!" And the fire alarm bell jangled from the City Hall tower. A newsboy burst into the soup house shouting, "Front Street tenement on fire! Fire! Spreading fast!" Mose bounded out of the soup house. In the evening sky of New York City, he hurried to his fire station. Other volunteer firemen rushed out of workshops, ballrooms, shipyards, and factories, until soon 29 brawny men had joined Mose at the station house. They all pulled on their bright red shirts and rainbow suspenders. Then they rolled out their old fire machine, which was called Lady Washington. The machine was hardly more than a pump. She had no engine or horses to move her along. So Mose and his men grabbed the old pumper by her 2 wooden bars and began lugging her through the streets to the fire. As Mose and the other volunteer firemen clattered over the cobblestone streets of old New York City, they ran past the steamboat pier. They ran past horse liveries and wooden shanties. They ran past soup houses, pigsties, roosters, and ragmen. They ran past newsboys crying, "Paper, 1 cent." They ran past oystermen lowering their traps into the Hudson River. They ran past chimney sweeps and women shouting, "Apples for sale, apples for sale," and nursery maids pushing carriages. But suddenly the firemen came to a halt. A horse-drawn trolley was stopped in the middle of the road, blocking their path. "Move! Fire!" Mose cried. "I can't! She's stuck!" the trolley driver shouted. "One of her wheels is caught between the tracks." "I'll take care of it, boys," Mose shouted to his men. He quickly unhooked the horses from the trolley car. Then he rolled up his sleeves and placed his huge hands under the trolley. Grunting and groaning, Mose lifted the crowded car slowly into the air until he held it with just one long arm over his head, like a waiter carrying a tray. As the trolley passengers screamed, Mose staggered across the street, then slowly set the trolley car down. After he dusted off his hands, he returned to his fire machine. Once again, the group of volunteer firemen took off, racing through the streets of old New York toward the black clouds of smoke billowing into the sky. Hundreds had gathered on Front Street to watch the burning tenement building. "Move out of the way!" The crowd quickly parted as the volunteers lugged their pumper to a hydrant. After Mose hooked up the hose, a team of 16 men began pumping the long handles on either side of the machine to build up pressure to form a jet of water. But suddenly, a woman ran toward the volunteers, screaming, "My baby's on the 3rd floor!" "Hold the nozzle, boys," Mose said, handing the hose to his men. He grabbed his fire ladder, but he threw it against the tenement and discovered it wasn't long enough to reach the 3rd floor window. "Bring me a whiskey barrel," he cried. When someone brought him the barrel, Mose set the ladder on top of the whiskey barrel, then started to climb. The crowd screamed as the ladder swayed left and right. Mose climbed to a window on the 3rd floor. Then, using his axe, he hacked the wood to make room to wedge his giant body inside. Just as he disappeared into the smoke and flames, the roof of the building began to cave in. "Nobody can escape now," someone cried. But moments later, Mose reappeared at the hacked-out window, coughing and covered with black soot. "He's alone," the mother screamed. "Where's my baby?" Flames engulfed the tenement building as Mose held his stovepipe hat to his chest and started down the ladder. When the ladder caught fire too, Mose leaped into the air, still holding his hat. Mose landed on the ground, jumped up, and moved quickly out of the way as the tenement building collapsed. The crowd rushed toward him, but Mose pushed them back and shouted, "Where's the baby's mother?" When the sobbing woman stumbled over, Mose reached into his big, fat hat and pulled out a tiny, crying infant. "Oh, thank you," the woman cried as she hugged the child. "Just doing my duty, ma'am," Mose said. The volunteers then returned Lady Washington to the fire station, and when she was safely put away, Mose resumed his seat across the street at the Paradise Soup House. "Don't forget about that plate of pork and beans, Mac," he said. "Make it a large piece of pork, and don't stop to count the beans." Mose Humphreys was famous all over New York City. Boys and girls would follow him everywhere. An American Tall Tale by Mary Osmond. Thanks for sharing with me this day.